The divorce papers sat on my kitchen table like a loaded gun. Crisp and white against the mahogany surface, Nathan had spent 3 weekends refinishing last spring. How did a single envelope, the kind no wife ever expects to see, destroy everything I thought I could control? My name stared back at me in cold, legal typeface. Vesperine Rooke, respondent. The coffee in my hand had gone cold hours ago, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process that my husband of 9 years had actually done it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it all started. How one night I keep telling myself I can explain turned into the complete destruction of my life. It was Tuesday morning, 48 hours after the Phoenix conference. I'd stumbled into our suburban kitchen at 6:30, my head pounding from what I told myself was just jet lag. The house smelled like Nathan's coffee and Amelia's strawberry Pop-Tarts, normal, domestic, safe, everything I was about to lose. "Mommy!" 7-year-old Amelia bounced in her chair, pigtails flying. "You're back! Did you bring me something?" My stomach clenched. I'd forgotten. Again. "Of course, sweetheart. It's in my suitcase upstairs." Nathan looked up from his laptop, those green eyes I'd fallen in love with in college, now studying me with quiet intensity. "How was the trip, Ves?" "Fine. Boring. You know how these HR conferences are." I poured coffee with shaking hands, hoping he couldn't see the tremor. "All meetings and PowerPoint presentations. You seemed energetic in your text Sunday night, up pretty late for boring meetings." My blood froze. Sunday night, the hotel bar. Bryce's hand on my lower back as he guided me to the elevator. The fumbled key card, his mouth on mine before the door even closed. The way he'd whispered my name like a prayer and a curse all at once. Was I? I don't remember. Probably just the time difference. I forced a laugh. You know how bad I am with that stuff. Nathan's fingers paused over his keyboard. "Phoenix is only 2 hours behind us, Ves." Amelia looked between us, her 7-year-old radar picking up tension. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" "Of course not, baby." I ruffled her hair, shooting Nathan a warning look. "Daddy's just being silly." But Nathan wasn't being silly. Nathan was being careful, methodical, the same way he approached everything else in his life. His job as a software engineer had taught him to look for patterns, inconsistencies, bugs in the system. And right now, I was the bug. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, Janice. "How did the trip go? Hope Nathan appreciated you working so hard for the family." Mom always took my side. Always had, ever since I was Amelia's age and could do no wrong in her eyes. If Nathan was being distant, if he was suspicious, well, that was his problem, not mine. I deserved respect. I deserved appreciation. I deserved more than suburban mediocrity and a husband who worked late and forgot to notice when I got my hair done. "I need to shower," I announced, heading for the stairs. "Long flight yesterday." "Your flight landed at 2 p.m., Nathan called after me. "You didn't get home until almost 8. I paused on the bottom step. I had to stop at the office, check my emails. On a Sunday. Some of us take our jobs seriously, Nathan. It was a low blow, and we both knew it. Nathan worked 60-hour weeks to support our lifestyle. The house, the private school for Amelia, the vacations I posted about on social media. But lately, I'd felt invisible in my own life. Invisible to him, invisible at work, invisible to everyone except Bryce Carraway. 42, silver at his temples, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to question whether you belonged in a room. He'd noticed me, really noticed me. And Sunday night, when the conference wound down and everyone gathered in the hotel bar, he'd noticed the way my black dress hugged my curves, the way I laughed at his stories, the way I leaned in when he spoke. "You're different from the others," he'd said, his breath warm against my ear. "Smarter, more sophisticated." When was the last time Nathan had called me sophisticated? When was the last time he'd called me anything besides Hon or Vez or, when he was really distracted, nothing at all? The shower water ran hot against my skin, washing away the guilt and the lingering scent of Bryce's cologne. It was one night, one mistake. It didn't have to mean anything. My phone rang as I was getting dressed. Joan, Nathan's mother. "Vesperine, dear, how are you feeling? Nathan said you seemed tired after your trip." Nathan had called his mother. Of course he had. Joan Rooke was protective of her son in that quiet, relentless way that had always made me feel like I was being measured and found wanting. "I'm fine, Joan. Just jet lag." Of course, these work trips can be so draining, though I'm sure it was nice to get away for a bit. There was something in her tone, a careful neutrality that set my teeth on edge. "It was work, Joan, not a vacation." "Oh, I know, dear. I just meant, well, sometimes we all need a little space to remember what's important." What's important? Like I didn't know what was important. Like I wasn't working my ass off to build a career, while Nathan got all the credit for being the provider. Like I wasn't the one who organized Amelia's playdates and school events and birthday parties, while he hid behind his computer screen. "I should go," I said. "Lots to catch up on." "Of course. Give my love to Amelia." Downstairs, Nathan was loading the dishwasher, while Amelia gathered her backpack for school. Normal, domestic, routine. The kind of scene that should have felt comforting, but instead felt like a cage. "I'll drop her off today," I announced. Nathan glanced up, surprised. "I thought you had that early meeting." "I can be a few minutes late. I want to spend time with my daughter." Another low blow. As if Nathan didn't spend every evening helping Amelia with homework, every weekend taking her to soccer practice, every bedtime reading her stories in different voices that made her giggle. But guilt was easier than honesty. Blame was easier than accountability. In the car, Amelia chatted about her friend Madison's upcoming birthday party. "Can we get her the Barbie dream house? Please, Mommy. Madison really wants it." "We'll see, baby." That's what you always say when you mean no. Smart kid. Too smart. Mummy's just thinking about a lot of things right now. "Are you sad?" I caught her eyes in the rearview mirror, 7 years old with Nathan's green eyes and my stubborn chin. "Why would I be sad?" "You look sad, and Daddy looks sad too, like when Grandpa Joe died." My throat tightened. "Nobody's dying, Amelia. Mommy and Daddy are just working through some things." "What kind of things?" "Grown-up things. Nothing for you to worry about." But she was already worrying. I could see it in the way she chewed her bottom lip, a habit she'd picked up from Nathan. Kids weren't stupid. They felt the tension, the distance, the careful way their parents spoke around each other. At school, I watched her run toward the building, backpack bouncing, pigtails streaming behind her, so innocent, so trusting, so unaware that her mother had just blown up their entire world for one night of feeling desired. My phone buzzed as I drove to work, a text from an unknown number. "Saw you at the hotel bar Sunday. Looked cozy. Might want to be more careful next time." My hand shook so hard I had to pull over. Someone had seen us. Someone knew. In the age of camera phones and social media, privacy was an illusion. One photo, one video, one witness with loose lips, and everything would unravel. I deleted the message and tried to breathe. It was probably just someone from the conference, maybe someone who had had too much to drink and was feeling gossipy. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. But as I sat in my car outside Amelia's school, watching other parents drop off their kids with casual kisses and easy smiles, I knew I was lying to myself. It meant everything. And somehow, some way, Nathan was already starting to figure that out. The office felt different when I walked in that Tuesday morning. Or maybe I felt different, hyper-aware of every glance, every whispered conversation that stopped when I passed. Paranoia, I told myself, guilt making me imagine threats that weren't there. Karina Mendez was waiting by my cubicle with 2 cups of coffee and the kind of expression that meant trouble. We need to talk, she said, glancing around the open office space. Break room, now. Karina had been my closest work friend for 3 years, ever since she'd started as a junior administrator in our HR department. 29, single, always ready for happy hour gossip and weekend shopping trips. She'd covered for me more times than I could count. Late mornings after rough nights, long lunches that turned into afternoon escapes, personal calls during work hours. But today, something was different in her dark eyes, nervous energy that made my stomach clench. So, she said once we were alone in the break room, her voice carefully casual. How was Phoenix? Fine, boring. The usual conference stuff. I stirred my coffee, avoiding her gaze. Why? Because Jennifer from marketing was there too, and she said she saw something interesting. My blood turned to ice. What kind of interesting? The kind where you and Bryce Carraway disappeared from the hotel bar together Sunday night, around 11, and neither of you were seen again until Monday morning. I forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow even to my own ears. That's ridiculous. We were probably just discussing work stuff. You know how these conferences are. Networking never stops. Vez, Karina leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. Jennifer said you two looked cozy, like really cozy. Hand on your back, whispering in your ear, cozy. Jennifer needs to mind her own business, and so do you. The words came out sharper than I'd intended, but I was cornered. Karina blinked, taken aback by my tone. I'm your friend, Vess. I'm trying to help you here. If people are talking, let them talk. I can't control what jealous people think they see. Jealous? Karina's eyebrows shot up. Of what? Of the fact that Bryce values my input. Of the fact that he actually listens to my ideas instead of dismissing them. Some people can't handle seeing a woman succeed in this place. It was a deflection, and we both knew it, but it was easier than admitting the truth, that I'd been flirting with our married boss for months, that the conference had been the perfect excuse to take things further. That Sunday night, I'd felt more alive than I had in years. Vez, be careful. Bryce Carraway isn't worth risking your marriage over. There's nothing to risk because nothing happened. I stood up, smoothing down my skirt. And I'd appreciate it if you didn't spread gossip about me. Karina stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. I wasn't spreading gossip. I was trying to warn you. Warn me about what? About the fact that Bryce has a reputation, about the fact that his wife already suspects he's cheating, about the fact that you're not the first woman in this office he's paid special attention to. The words hit like a slap. Not the first woman. Of course I wasn't. Men like Bryce Carraway collected conquests like trophies, and I'd been stupid enough to think I was special. But admitting that would mean admitting everything else. So instead I doubled down. You're just jealous that he chose to work with me instead of you, that he recognizes my potential. Karina's face flushed. Are you serious right now? I'm trying to be a good friend, and you're accusing me of jealousy. If the shoe fits. She stood up, shaking her head. You know what? Fine. Handle your own mess, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. She left me alone in the break room with my coffee and my lies. Through the glass door, I could see the office buzzing with its usual Tuesday morning energy. People at their desks, focused on their screens, living their normal lives while mine felt like it was spinning out of control. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Can we talk tonight, after Amelia goes to bed? My hands shook as I typed back. Sure. Everything okay? We'll discuss it tonight. Formal, distant, so unlike the man who used to text me silly memes during his lunch breaks, who used to send me pictures of funny signs he saw on his way to work. When had we stopped being playful with each other? When had everything become so serious, so careful? I knew the answer. It had been gradual. The slow erosion of intimacy that happened when you stopped really seeing each other, when work and parenting and the daily grind of life took precedence over connection, when you started looking elsewhere for the spark that used to exist between you. Another text, this one from my mother. Hope you're settling back in well. Remember, you work hard and deserve appreciation. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for being ambitious. Mom always knew what to say. She'd raised me to believe I could have it all: career, family, respect. She'd divorced my father when I was 12 because he'd tried to hold her back, tried to make her smaller than she was. Never let a man dim your light, she'd always told me. You're worth more than that. Maybe that's what was happening here. Maybe Nathan's suspicion, his distance, his careful questions were just his way of trying to control me, of making me feel guilty for being successful, for being noticed, for being desired by other men. The thought was comforting. It shifted the blame away from me and onto him, where it felt safer. I was still telling myself this when Bryce walked into the break room. He looked exactly the same as he had Sunday night, confident, composed, devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit. But there was something different in his eyes when he saw me, a coolness that hadn't been there when he was whispering in my ear at the hotel bar. Vesperine, how are you settling back in? Fine, thank you. I waited for him to say something about Sunday night, to acknowledge what had happened between us. Instead, he poured himself coffee like it was any other Tuesday morning. Good, I'll need those conference reports on my desk by Thursday. Make sure you include the breakout session notes. Professional, distant, like I was just another employee instead of the woman who'd been in his bed 2 nights ago. Of course, Mr. Carraway. He paused at the door, glancing back. And Vesperine, let's keep our focus on work, shall we? There's been enough distraction lately. Distraction, that's what I was to him. A distraction. I sat alone in the break room for another 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The man who'd made me feel beautiful and desired and special had just dismissed me like I was nothing. Like Sunday night had meant nothing. But it had meant something to me. It had meant everything. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Saw the conference photos on LinkedIn. Interesting body language between you and the boss. Wonder what your husband would think. This time, I didn't delete the message right away. I stared at it, feeling the walls closing in around me. Someone was watching. Someone knew, and they weren't going to let it go. I thought about Nathan's text, his request to talk tonight, about Karina's warning, about Bryce's coldness, about the way Amelia had looked at me this morning, sensing something was wrong. Everything was unraveling, and I was powerless to stop it. All because of one night when I'd felt like myself again. One night when someone had seen me as more than just Nathan's wife or Amelia's mother or another face in the corporate crowd. One night that was about to cost me everything. Sunday brunch at Café Luna had been a family tradition for years. Nathan's idea originally, a weekly gathering where Amelia could see her grandparents, where we could pretend to be the perfect family over mimosas and eggs Benedict. Today, it felt like walking into a courtroom. Joan Rooke was already seated when we arrived, her silver hair perfectly styled, her blue eyes sharp, with the kind of intelligence that had made her a formidable high school principal for 30 years. Next to her sat my mother, Janice, designer handbag clutched in her manicured hands like armor. The two women had never liked each other. Oil and water, Nathan always said. Joan was all quiet dignity and subtle disapproval. Mum was loud opinions and fierce loyalty to her only daughter. There's my beautiful granddaughter. Joan stood to hug Amelia, who ran into her arms with genuine joy. At least someone in this family was still innocent. Grandma Joan, guess what? I lost another tooth. Did you now? And what did the tooth fairy bring you? While Amelia chattered about her windfall, $5 whole, I caught Joan's eyes over her head. There was something there, a careful assessment that made my skin crawl. Vesperine, dear, she said as we settled into our seats. You look tired. How was your work trip? It was fine, productive. I reached for the mimosa menu, needing something to steady my nerves. I'm sure it was, Mom interjected, her voice sharp with defensive pride. Ves works so hard for that company. They're lucky to have someone so dedicated. Nathan was quiet, studying his menu like it held the secrets of the universe. He'd been quiet all week, ever since our talk Tuesday night, if you could call it that. He'd asked careful, probing questions about Phoenix, about my schedule, about why I'd seemed so different since coming home. I'd deflected, blamed stress and jet lag, and the general exhaustion of travel. But I could see him thinking, processing, filing away inconsistencies like the software engineer he was. Speaking of work, Joan said carefully, I ran into Margaret Sullivan at the grocery store yesterday. Her daughter works at your company, doesn't she? My blood froze. Margaret Sullivan, Jennifer's mother, Jennifer from marketing, who'd seen Bryce and me at the hotel bar. I think so, I managed. She mentioned something about a conference, said Jennifer had quite interesting stories to tell. The mimosa turned to acid in my mouth. People love to gossip about business trips, usually nothing worth repeating. Of course not, Joan agreed, but her tone suggested otherwise. Still, in a small community like ours, reputation matters. People talk. Let them talk, Mum snapped. Ves has nothing to hide. She's a professional woman doing her job. If people want to make something dirty out of that, it says more about them than it does about her. Nathan finally looked up from his menu. What kind of stories? The question hung in the air like smoke. Amelia was coloring on her kid's menu, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. Nothing important, I said quickly. You know how these conference things are. People drink too much. Imagine drama where there isn't any. Drama? Nathan's green eyes were laser-focused now. What kind of drama? I forced a laugh, loud enough that other diners glanced over. Oh, you know how it is, honey. Some people just can't handle seeing a woman succeed. They have to make it about something else. It was a calculated move, making Nathan the villain if he pressed the issue, making him look like the suspicious, controlling husband who couldn't trust his successful wife. I see, he said quietly. Too quietly. Exactly, Mom chimed in, warming to the theme. Nathan, you should be proud of Ves. She's making a name for herself in that company, building a career, supporting this family. I am proud of her, Nathan said, his voice carefully neutral. I've always been proud of her. Then maybe you could show it more, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Maybe you could pay attention when I tell you about work instead of hiding behind your laptop. Maybe you could notice when I get my hair done or buy a new dress or actually make an effort. The table went silent. Even Amelia looked up from her coloring, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Ves, Nathan said softly. This isn't the place. When is the place, Nathan? When do we ever talk about anything real anymore? When do you ever see me as anything more than the woman who does your laundry and raises your daughter? Our daughter, he corrected, and something in his tone made me realize I'd gone too far. Joan's face was stone. Mum was nodding approvingly, like I was finally standing up for myself. And Nathan was looking at me like he was seeing a stranger. You're right, he said, standing up. We should talk about real things, but not here, not in front of Amelia. He threw 2 20s on the table and walked out, leaving me sitting there with my righteous anger and the growing realization that I'd just made everything infinitely worse. Good for you, Mum whispered fiercely. Don't let him make you feel guilty for being ambitious. Men can't handle strong women. But Joan was shaking her head, her eyes sad. Vesperine, dear, marriage is about partnership, about respect, about trust. I haven't done anything wrong, I said, but the words sounded hollow. Haven't you? The question hung between us like a challenge. Amelia had stopped coloring entirely, her small face anxious. Is Daddy mad at Mommy? She asked in a small voice. No, baby, I said quickly. Daddy's just having a hard day. But as we drove home in silence, Mom muttering about Nathan's attitude while Amelia stared out the window, I knew I was lying. Nathan wasn't having a hard day. Nathan was having a revelation. And I was running out of ways to stop it. At home, I found Nathan in his office, door closed. I could hear him talking in low tones, to his brother Kellen probably, or maybe his mother, building his case, gathering his allies, preparing for whatever came next. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. Cute performance at brunch today. Too bad your husband's already 3 steps ahead of you. This time, I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracked, but still glowing with that damning message. Someone was watching. Someone was reporting back. And Nathan was planning something. I thought about Sunday night, about Bryce's hands on my skin, about feeling desired and beautiful and alive. It had been worth it then. It had felt like freedom. Now it felt like the beginning of the end. Nathan was waiting for me in the kitchen when I came downstairs Thursday night. Amelia was at a sleepover, at her friend Madison's house, convenient timing that now seemed deliberate. The house felt too quiet, too still, like the calm before a storm. He sat at our kitchen table with a manila folder in front of him, his laptop open, his face wearing the same expression I'd seen when he debugged particularly complex code problems. Methodical, patient, determined. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my voice steady. "Okay, about what?" "About Phoenix, about Sunday night, about the lies you've been telling me for the past week." I poured myself a glass of wine with shaking hands, buying time. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" He opened the folder, and my world tilted sideways. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, phone records, a printout of text messages I thought I'd deleted, everything laid out in neat chronological order, like evidence at a trial. "Bryce Caraway," Nathan read from one of the texts. "Sunday, 11:47 p.m. Room 412. I can't stop thinking about you. Your response, 11:52 p.m. On my way." The wine glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. Red liquid spread across the white tiles like blood. "Nathan, I can explain." "Can you?" He looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his green eyes. Not anger, not hurt, something colder, something final. Because I've been trying to figure out how to explain this myself. How to explain why my wife of 9 years, the mother of my daughter, would throw away everything we've built for a man who's already moved on to his next conquest. It's not like that. What's it like then, Vess? Help me understand. Because I've been going over this for days and I can't figure out what I did wrong, what I didn't give you, what I failed to be. The pain in his voice broke something inside me. This was Nathan. Steady, loyal Nathan, who'd held my hair when I had morning sickness, who'd worked overtime to pay for Amelia's private school, who'd never once made me doubt that he loved me. And I'd destroyed him. "You didn't do anything wrong," I whispered. "Then why?" He stood up, and I saw how much weight he'd lost this week, how the stress had carved new lines around his eyes. "Why him? Why now? Why throw away 9 years for someone who's already pretending it never happened? How do you know about that?" "Because I've been watching, Vez. I've been paying attention to things I should have noticed months ago. The late nights, the new clothes, the way you light up when your phone buzzes, the way you've been looking at me like I'm the enemy." He pulled out another sheet of paper. "Hotel keycard records. You entered his room at 12:03 a.m. You didn't leave until 6:15 a.m. 6 hours, Vez. 6 hours while I was home with our daughter, worried sick because you weren't answering your phone." I sank into a chair, the weight of my choices crushing down on me. "Nathan, please. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" His voice cracked. "Our marriage didn't mean anything. Our family didn't mean anything. The vows we made didn't mean anything." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you meant every second of it. Every lie, every deception, Every moment you looked me in the eye and made me feel crazy for suspecting what I knew in my gut was true. Tears were streaming down my face now, but they felt empty, performative, like everything else I'd done this week. I'm so sorry, Nathan. It was just, I felt invisible, like you didn't see me anymore, like I was just going through the motions of being alive. So you decided to blow up our family instead of talking to me about it. I tried to talk to you, but you're always working, always distracted. When was the last time you really looked at me, really saw me? I see you every day, Vess. I see you when you're rushing to get Amelia ready for school. I see you when you're stressed about work. I see you when you're laughing at something stupid on TV. I see you when you're sleeping next to me every night, and I think about how lucky I am to have you. The past tense hit me like a physical blow. Had, not have, had. Nathan, I see you when you lie to my face about working late and then come home smelling like another man's cologne. I see you when you humiliate me in front of our families, making me out to be some neglectful husband who drove you to this. I see you when you use our daughter as a shield, making me the bad guy for wanting to protect what's left of our marriage. He was right, about all of it, but admitting that would mean admitting that I'd destroyed the best thing in my life for a fantasy, that I'd traded a man who truly loved me for one who'd already forgotten my name. It was just one night, I said desperately. One stupid, meaningless night. We can get past this. We can go to counseling. We can... No. The word was quiet but absolute. We can't. He closed the laptop, gathered the papers. I've already talked to a lawyer. I'm filing for separation tomorrow. The room spun around me. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. What about Amelia? What about our family? You should have thought about that before you decided to fuck your boss in a hotel room. The crude word sounded wrong in Nathan's mouth. He never talked like that. Never lost control. The fact that he had now showed me exactly how far past the point of no return we'd gone. Please, I begged, please don't do this. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. We can... Fix it? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. How do we fix the fact that you're still lying to me? How do we fix the fact that you're more upset about getting caught than you are about what you did? How do we fix the fact that you're already planning your next move instead of taking responsibility for this one? I am taking responsibility. Are you? Because 5 minutes ago, you were still trying to convince me it was my fault, that I drove you to this, that I didn't appreciate you enough. He was right. Even now, even caught red-handed with evidence I couldn't deny, part of me was still looking for ways to make this his fault instead of mine. Nathan, please, I love you. He stopped at the kitchen door, his back to me. No, Vess, you love the idea of me, the security I provide, the stability, the way I make you look good to other people. But you don't love me enough to be faithful. You don't love me enough to be honest. And you sure as hell don't love me enough to put our family first. That's not true, isn't it? Because if you really loved me, you would have come to me when you were feeling invisible instead of running to another man. If you really loved our family, you would have fought for us instead of fighting against us. He turned back to look at me one last time, and I saw my future written in his eyes. Empty, alone, broken. I'll be staying at Kellen's for a while. My lawyer will be in touch about custody arrangements. Custody? The word came out as a whisper. Did you think I was going to let you have unsupervised access to our daughter while you're having a midlife crisis? Did you think I was going to trust you to put her needs first when you couldn't even put our marriage first? And then he was gone, leaving me alone in our kitchen with the broken glass and spilled wine and the ruins of everything I'd once thought was permanent. I called my mother, sobbing into the phone about Nathan's overreaction and his controlling behavior. She made all the right supportive noises, told me I deserved better, promised to help me fight for what was mine. But as I hung up and looked around our empty house, the family photos on the refrigerator, Amelia's artwork on the walls, the life we'd built together over 9 years, I knew the truth. I hadn't just cheated on Nathan. I'd cheated on all of it, and now I was going to lose everything that had ever mattered. The anonymous texts had stopped. Whoever had been watching, whoever had been reporting back, had accomplished their goal. Nathan knew. The marriage was over. The family was broken. And I had no one to blame but myself. The separation papers arrived on a Tuesday, delivered by a courier who looked apologetic as he handed me the manila envelope. I signed for them, with hands that shook so badly I could barely hold the pen, then stood in my doorway watching him drive away like he was taking my last hope with him. Inside, the legal language was cold and precise. Irreconcilable differences. Temporary custody arrangement. Division of assets. Words that reduced 9 years of marriage to a business transaction. Nathan had been thorough, methodical. He'd documented everything. The hotel receipts, the text messages, the timeline of my lies. But more than that, he'd built a case for why he should have primary custody of Amelia. My work schedule, my recent instability, the breakdown in judgment that had led to the affair. I called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. "Nathan, please, we need to talk about this. You can't just take Amelia away from me. I'm her mother. I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me a bad parent. Please call me back." He didn't. At work, the whispers followed me everywhere. Jennifer from marketing had apparently been busy, and the story had spread through the office like wildfire. Vesperine Rooke, the woman who thought she was better than everyone else, had been sleeping with the boss, and now her marriage was falling apart. Bryce avoided me completely. When we passed in the hallway, he looked through me like I was invisible. The man who'd whispered that I was special, sophisticated, different from the others, now treated me like a liability he needed to contain. "Vesperine," he said when I cornered him in his office Friday afternoon, "I think it's best if we keep our interactions strictly professional going forward." "Professional?" I laughed bitterly. "Is that what Sunday night was? Professional development?" His face hardened. "Sunday night was a mistake, one that won't be repeated." "A mistake? You called me sophisticated. You said I was different." "I was drunk. We both were. Let's leave it at that." "So that's it? You're just going to pretend it never happened?" "That's exactly what I'm going to do, and I suggest you do the same." He leaned back in his leather chair, every inch the powerful executive dismissing a subordinate. "Unless you'd prefer to discuss this with HR, I'm sure they'd be very interested in your version of events." The threat was clear: keep quiet or face the consequences. I was expendable. He wasn't. I walked out of his office feeling smaller than I had in years. The man who'd made me feel beautiful and desired had reduced me to a problem to be managed, a mistake to be forgotten. Karina was waiting by my cubicle when I got back to my desk, her expression a mixture of pity and vindication. "I heard about the separation," she said quietly. "I'm sorry, Vess." "Are you? Because you look pretty satisfied with yourself right now. I tried to warn you. You wouldn't listen. You tried to sabotage me because you were jealous." She shook her head. "I tried to save you from yourself, but you were so convinced that you were special, that you were different, that you couldn't see what everyone else could see." "Which was what?" "That Bryce Carraway collects women like trophies, that his wife has been through this before, that you were just another conquest in a long line of conquests." The words hit like physical blows. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? Ask Sandra from accounting about her business trip to Denver last year. Ask Michelle from legal about her mentoring sessions with Bryce. You're not the first, Vess, and you won't be the last." I wanted to argue, to defend what Bryce and I had shared. But looking at Karina's pitying expression, I realized how pathetic I sounded, how delusional I'd been. "I need to get back to work," I mumbled. "Vess, wait." She touched my arm gently. "I know you're hurting. I know this feels like the end of the world, but maybe it's a chance to start over, to figure out what you really want." "I want my family back." "Do you? Or do you want the security your family represented? Because there's a difference. I pulled away from her. You don't understand. You've never been married. You don't know what it's like to lose everything. You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to watch a friend destroy herself for a man who isn't worth it. That weekend, I had Amelia for my court-mandated visitation. 2 days, supervised by Nathan's mother, Joan, who sat in my living room like a prison guard, making sure I didn't corrupt my own daughter. "Mummy, why doesn't Daddy live here anymore?" Amelia asked as we colored together at the kitchen table. "Daddy and Mommy are just taking a break, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. Like when Madison's parents got divorced." The word hit me like a slap. "We're not getting divorced, baby. We're just working through some problems." But even as I said it, I knew I was lying. The separation papers were just the beginning. Nathan was methodical, thorough. He wouldn't have filed them unless he was prepared to see it through to the end. "I miss Daddy," Amelia said quietly. "I know, baby. I miss him too." "Then why can't he come home? How do you explain betrayal to a 7-year-old? How do you tell your daughter that Mommy made choices that broke the family apart? How do you admit that you traded her stability for one night of feeling desired? Sometimes when people hurt each other, they need time apart to heal," I said finally. "Did you hurt Daddy?" The question hung in the air between us. Joan looked up from her magazine, waiting to see how I'd answer. "Yes," I whispered. "I hurt Daddy very badly." "Can you say sorry?" "I did say sorry, baby, but sometimes sorry isn't enough." Amelia went back to her coloring, but I could see her processing this information. 7 years old, and already learning that the adults in her life weren't infallible, that families could break, that love wasn't always enough. That night, after Joan left and Amelia was asleep, I sat alone in my house. Our house, the one Nathan would probably get in the divorce, and tried to figure out where everything had gone wrong. It hadn't started with Bryce. It had started years earlier, with small resentments and unspoken disappointments, with feeling taken for granted and overlooked, with convincing myself that I deserved more than suburban contentment and quiet love. But now, sitting in the wreckage of my life, I realized what I'd actually had. A man who loved me unconditionally, a daughter who adored me, a family that was solid and real and worth fighting for. And I'd thrown it all away for a fantasy. For a man who'd never seen me as anything more than a convenient distraction. For one night of feeling special that had cost me everything that actually was special. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Lawyer wants to meet Thursday to discuss permanent custody arrangements. Please have your attorney present." Permanent custody arrangements. The words made my chest tight with panic. He wasn't just taking a break. He was building a new life, one that might not include me at all. I called my mother, crying into the phone about Nathan's vindictive behavior and his attempts to turn Amelia against me. She made all the right supportive noises, but even she sounded less certain now, less convinced that I was the victim in the story. "Maybe," she said carefully, "you should consider what you really want here, Vess. What's best for everyone involved. I want my family back. But do they want you back? And more importantly, are you willing to do the work to deserve them back?" The question haunted me long after we hung up. Was I willing to do the work? Or was I still looking for someone else to blame, someone else to fix the mess I'd made? As I sat alone in my empty house, I realized I didn't know the answer. And that terrified me more than anything else. The law office of Morrison & Associates looked exactly like power should. Mahogany, leather spines, expensive cologne, and quiet control. Nathan sat across from me beside Catherine Morrison, sharp-eyed and surgical. I brought a lawyer my mother trusted, sure we could fight custody. Then I saw the evidence spread like a neat execution. Catherine reviewed the affair, the lies, the public humiliation, the reports, the missed school events. Nathan stayed calm, focused on Amelia. Court would make it public, and Amelia could suffer more. My lawyer whispered about fighting, but I finally understood the truth. I signed because protecting my daughter mattered more than saving face.